Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into how the modern Middle East was shaped, not just by big armies and dusty treaties, but by something you might not expect. Images. Yeah, we're talking about portraits, photographs, and one very, very important map. So, let's start with a big question. How do you actually build a country? Do you do it with force, with politics, or maybe something else? Well, the story of the modern Middle East has some pretty surprising answers.
Could you start with just a portrait? We're going to see how ambitious leaders, guys like Muhammad Ali of Egypt, used Western-style art to basically create a whole new brand for themselves in their modernizing states.
Or how about with a photograph? We're going to uncover this massive photo collection. It was basically an epic PR campaign that an Ottoman sultan put together to completely redefine his empire on the world stage.
Or could it all just come down to a single line drawn on a map? We're going to look at how one secret agreement, sketched out by a couple of Europeans, ended up creating the very borders that define the region and its conflicts, even today. All right, let's kick things off in the early 19th century. We're calling this Portraits of a New Era. You see, the Ottoman Empire was under huge pressure from Europe, and it needed a new way to look powerful. For some leaders, the answer was to change how they were seen, literally.
And this is our first key figure, Muhammad Ali. Now, he was an Ottoman officer who rose to become the ruler of Egypt, and he had huge ambitions. He wanted to modernize the country, build an incredible army, and show the world that he wasn't just some governor. He was a modern sovereign on the same level as any king in Europe.
And here's the crucial part. He used art as statecraft. He totally broke from the old, stylized Ottoman art and started commissioning these realistic portraits. You gotta understand, these paintings weren't just for decoration, nope. They were carefully crafted messages, designed to project strength and modernity, especially to a Western audience.
Okay, now let's fast forward to the end of the 19th century. There's another Ottoman ruler, Sultan Abdulhamid II, and he takes this whole idea of visual messaging and just blows it up to an industrial scale, all thanks to the new technology of photography.
1,819. Get this, that is the number of photographs Sultan Abdulhamid compiled into these incredibly lavish albums. And then in 1893, he sent them as a gift to the United States and Great Britain. Believe me, this was no ordinary photo album.
Just look at this thing. The ornate leather and gold cover alone tells you everything. These weren't just snapshots. This was a carefully curated visual argument for his entire empire, designed to make a very, very specific impression.
And his goal? Oh, it was crystal clear. He wanted to fight back against those romanticized, kind of condescending, Orientalist ideas about his empire that were so popular in the West. His photo collection was a direct rebuttal, meant to replace stereotypes of a backward land with a vision of a modern, organized, and totally advanced empire.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates his strategy. On the left, that's the kind of staged, exotic stuff Westerners expected to see. But on the right, that's what the Sultan wanted them to see. Bustling city streets, modern buildings, new schools, hospitals, professional military barracks. It was his empire's resume, in pictures.
But here's the twist. While the Sultan was busy trying to frame his empire's image from the inside, European powers were secretly planning to just wipe it off the map entirely. The fate of the whole region wasn't going to be decided by photographs, but by ink.
So, right in the middle of World War I, with the Ottoman Empire fighting on the other side, a couple of diplomats from Britain and France sat down with a map. And in secret, they started carving up the future. They made a plan for what would happen to all the Ottoman lands when the war was over. This plan became known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement. It's named after the two diplomats, Mark Sykes and François-Georges Picot. And this secret little treaty would go on to become one of the most controversial, most consequential documents in the history of the Middle East, seen by many as the ultimate betrayal.
And this is it. This is the map. With just a few lines, some say they were literally drawn in crayon, this map laid the foundation for the borders we still see today. But here's the thing, those lines were based on what was good for the empires, and they completely ignored the complex reality of who actually lived there. The whole thing was shockingly simple, really. The blue area, that was for France. Think modern-day Syria and Lebanon. The red area, that went to Britain, covering Jordan and southern Iraq. And Palestine, well, that was set aside for some kind of international control. It was a blueprint for a new Middle East, drawn by and for Europeans. So, to see how this all played out on the ground, let's zoom in on one man whose life was totally turned upside down by these new lines on the map, Faisal, who is a key leader of the Arab revolt against the Ottomans. I mean, Faisal's career was a total whirlwind, and it shows you exactly how the Sykes-Picot Agreement worked in practice. After fighting with the British, he's declared king of Syria. But just 4 months later, the French, who had been promised Syria in that secret deal, show up and kick him out. So what do the British do? They find him a new job, king of Iraq. Just like that.
And, just like Muhammad Ali a century before him, Faisal's own image tells the whole story perfectly. You can see this deliberate visual transformation. He goes from being the Arab nationalist leader in traditional robes to being the modern, Western-aligned monarch of a brand new state, wearing this crisp military uniform. His clothes were his new reality.
So, what do we take away from all of this, from these portraits and photographs and maps from more than a century ago? Why does any of this still matter so much today?
Well, it matters because those lines drawn on a map became hard borders for new nations, often mashing totally different groups of people together. And that struggle to create a national identity, the very thing Muhammad Ali and Sultan Abdul Hamid tried to do with their images, is a direct legacy of these decisions made by outsiders.
It's really a powerful reminder, isn't it? The world we see on a map, it isn't always a natural, given reality. So often, it's a story that's been drawn and photographed and painted into existence by those who held the pen. And for the Middle East, that story is still very much being written.